Okay, let's unpack this. Welcome, everyone, to a deep dive into, well, one of Earth's most challenging places, Mount Everest.
Hmm.
We're really going to get into the heart of this monumental undertaking, and we're guided here by the sources you shared with us.
Yeah, and what immediately stands out from the material is this kind of central tension, isn't it? Is Everest the ultimate human adventure, the peak of achievement?
Right.
Or is it, like some of these sources suggesting, maybe an overpriced, overcrowded, and frankly, incredibly dangerous gamble?
That's exactly the question we're wrestling with in this deep
Mhm.
dive. So our mission is to take the information you've given us and explore the whole experience from the really tough journey just to get there,
Little
to the
logistics.
staggering costs involved, what it's actually like standing or, maybe just waiting near the summit,
Uh-huh.
the ethical questions that are coming up about climbing today, and really trying to understand that view from 29,032 feet, all through the lens of this material.
And this exploration, it's built specifically for you based on that info you provided.
Yeah.
We're here to help you quickly get a handle on the key aspects, maybe some surprising details, and the bigger issues in these sources. So let's jump in.
Okay, so the sources make it really clear you don't just like book a flight and show up at the base of Everest ready to climb.
Not at all.
There's this entire journey just to get to the starting line, which, I mean, sounds like a pretty significant undertaking itself.
Right. According to these reports, the process usually kicks off with flying into Kathmandu
Mm.
in Nepal.
Okay.
But from there, it's not a short drive or anything. It's typically roughly 10-day trek on foot.
10 days. Wow.
Yeah, just to reach base camp, which already sits at a hefty 17,600 feet.
And the sources, they really paint a picture of that trek. They mention things like yak trains carrying supplies,
A classic image.
stopping at tea houses along the way, and for a lot of people, the almost immediate start of altitude headaches, as your body tries to adjust. It sounds like a challenge long before you even think about ropes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then once you do get to base camp, the sources basically outline the two main routes climbers usually look at.
Okay.
You've got the South Col route, that's from the Nepal side. It's often called the classic path, right?
Mm.
The one Hillary and Norgay first used.
The famous one.
Exactly. It's known for being, well, more developed, better support systems,
Yeah.
but it also tends to be much, much more crowded.
And the other option.
That's the North Ridge route, which you approach from Tibet. The material describes this one as more remote, definitely colder, and generally you see far fewer people there,
So different challenges depending on the side.
for sure. And on that popular south route, there's one specific danger that's notorious and heavily highlighted in the sources, the Khumbu icefall.
Ah, yes, I saw that.
It's described as just terrifying
Yeah,
because it's a constantly moving glacier. It shifts daily.
daily.
Yeah, daily, which creates these deadly, unpredictable crevasses, these huge towers of ice called seracs that can just collapse without any warning.
Wow. I saw that the sources even give it that grim nickname, the suicide section.
Mhm.
Just hearing that name tells you the kind of risk involved in just navigating that one unavoidable part of the climb.
It really does. It sets the tone early.
So, okay, after you survive that initial journey and maybe the ice fall, the next thing that just leaps out from these sources is the cost. The sheer scale of it.
Oh, yeah.
Climbing Everest isn't just expensive, it's truly staggering.
It really is. The sources are indicating a standard guided expedition. It can run anywhere from, say, $35,000
Mm-hmm.
all the way up to $100,000.
$100,000.
Yeah. And when you see numbers like that, you have to ask, well, where does all that money actually go?
And the material breaks it down pretty well. A big chunk is just the permit fee. The governments require it.
Right.
It's $11,000 for Nepal or $9,950 if you're going via Tibet, just for permission.
Just to be there.
Hmm.
And then there's the cost of guides, especially the Sherpas, who are absolutely essential.
Crucial, yeah.
The sources state this can range from $7,000 to $15,000 per climber. And honestly, their role in safety and success, you can't overstate it.
Plus, you need incredibly specialized gear for those kinds of altitudes, right? Like everything from insulated high-altitude suits to supplemental oxygen tanks.
Oh, yeah, absolutely vital.
The sources estimate that gear alone can add around $8,000.
And that's not even counting the months of training you need beforehand, preparatory climbs. That
Yeah.
can easily add another $5,000, maybe more.
So you're already deep in before you even leave home, really.
Exactly. Which
Yeah.
brings up a really critical point. The sources connect directly to the cost.
Oh,
Safety.
how so?
Well, the material cites this example from 2019. Apparently, a climber on a, let's say, lower-budget expedition reportedly died after their guides left them behind.
Oh, wow.
It really frames the climb, like the sources put it, not just as a tough hike, but more like a luxury survival mission.
Luxury survival mission. That's a phrase.
Yeah. You're paying, and often paying dearly, for that support system that gives you a fighting chance of getting back down safely. Host speaker. Speaker. And speaking of safety and the number of people, another huge danger the sources mention is the issue of traffic jams, like actual queues high up the mountain. Yes, this is a tragically literal problem. The sources highlight that in 2019, 11 people died in just one climbing season.
11?
11. And reports indicated that overcrowding, basically too many climbers lined up in the death zone waiting to get to the summit, was a major contributing factor.
Just stuck there.
Stuck waiting at those altitudes, burning vital oxygen, getting colder. It's incredibly dangerous.
So, okay, let's imagine you've somehow made it through the journey, the icefall. You've spent maybe $100,000, navigated the crowds to get this far. You're finally on summit day, pushing for the top. What did the sources say that experience is actually like? It doesn't sound pleasant.
Far from it, no. The sources describe a really grueling reality. You're starting your push around midnight.
Midnight, in the cold.
Yeah. In the extreme cold, yeah. Often literally crawling in temperatures around minus 40 Fahrenheit. You're dealing with oxygen masks that can freeze up.
Oh, my God.
And the effects of severe hypoxia, or lack of oxygen, which can include hallucinations, that's the physical state you're in.
Hallucinations, right. And the sources, they really kind of puncture that romantic image of the summit itself, don't they?
They do. They point out that the actual space, the physical spot at the very top of the world, it's tiny. Described as being smaller than a typical bedroom.
Smaller than a bedroom for everyone trying to get there.
Exactly. And the scene when you arrive, well, it's often pretty grim, according to the material.
Yeah.
Instead of some serene moment of triumph, climbers often find themselves waiting in line, literally queuing for their turn for what's usually a very brief photo op.
While standing next to.
Frequently, yes, with frozen bodies of previous climbers tragically visible nearby.
They even call out that specific haunting example, green boots. The body of a climber who died back in 1996, still there, like a macabre landmark.
That detail really underscores the sheer scale of the danger. You know? The overall death statistics from the sources are just stark.
What are they?
Over 300 people have died trying to climb Everest over the years, and it's estimated around 200 bodies are still up there on the mountain, many in places that are just impossible to recover from.
200 bodies still there.
Yeah.
And that feeling, you know, when you do reach the top, there's one quote from a climber cited in the sources that really stuck with me.
Which one was that?
Describing the view and the whole experience as being like standing on the moon, but exhausted and terrified.
Wow.
Yeah.
Exhausted and terrified. That says a lot, doesn't it? Not exactly pure elation.
Not what you might picture.
So given these realities, we're talking about the cost, the danger, the scene at the top, the sources quite naturally pivot to the ethical questions around Everest climbing today.
Right.
And a concept that comes up quite a bit is trophy tourism.
Trophy tourism, meaning...
Right. It feels like the sources are asking, you know, has it become less about genuine exploration or mountaineering challenge and maybe more about just getting to the top for bragging rights?
Yeah.
For the photo op.
Regardless of the cost.
Perhaps at too great a cost, yeah. And speaking of cost, one major impact the sources detail is environmental.
Ah, the trash problem.
Exactly. The material explicitly states the mountain is significantly littered with debris, you know, discarded oxygen tanks, abandoned tents, old ropes, climbing gear, and sadly, even human waste.
That's pretty bleak.
It is. Now, to try and address this, Nepal has implemented a rule. It's discussed in the sources. Climbers are now required to haul back at least 18 pounds of trash from the mountain.
18 pounds?
Yeah, or they risk losing their $4,000 cleanup deposit.
Yeah.
So it's an attempt, but, you know, the problem is still really significant.
And another huge ethical angle the sources dig into is the role and the immense risks faced by the Sherpa guides and support staff.
Absolutely critical point. They're just indispensable to basically every single expedition.
Couldn't do it without them.
Pretty much. And the sources highlight the extreme danger they face for what amounts to, well, relatively modest income compared to what the climbers are paying, often in the range of $5,000 to $10,000 per climb.
For risking their lives.
Exactly. And this is really concerning because, as the material points out, over 1/3 of all deaths on Everest are Sherpas.
A third.
Over a third. Frequently, they're the ones doing the most vital, most dangerous work, like fixing the ropes, preparing the route for the foreign climbers who come later.
Wow. That puts a whole different perspective on it.
It really does.
Yet, despite all these huge issues, I mean, the tremendous cost, the extreme danger, both natural and from overcrowding, the environmental mess, the ethical questions about the Sherpas, the sources acknowledge that the desire, that pull towards this ultimate adventure, it clearly persists. They note, for instance, that a record 478 people successfully summited in just 2023.
The numbers keep going up. Which brings us right back to that central ethical question these sources seem to be posing, doesn't it? Which is it truly worth it when you look at the full picture?
Yeah.
And maybe, should climbing Everest continue in the way it currently does?
Okay, so let's just take a moment here to recap what we've kind of pulled out in this deep dive, drawing directly from the sources you provided about climbing Mount Everest.
Yeah, sounds good. We've seen that just getting to the mountain involves a really challenging days-long trek just to reach base camp.
Yeah.
You're navigating tough terrain and altitude right from the start.
Right. And the financial cost is just colossal. The source is showing it ranging from $35,000 up to $100,000, like you said, comparable to a down payment on a house. Highlighting all those layers. Permits, guides, gear, training, all part of what the material called that luxury survival mission.
And the sources really underscore the extreme dangers.
Yeah.
Not just from nature, like the shifting Khumbu icefall or those brutal -40 temperatures,
Yeah.
but also from the human impact, those deadly traffic jams near the summit, which were tragically linked to the deaths of 11 people back in 2019.
And the reality of the summit itself, far from some peaceful victory often described as, well, crowded, brief, with that stark, unavoidable presence of frozen bodies like green boots. Just a somber reminder of the over 300 lives lost and those estimated 200 bodies still on the mountain.
Grim reality. And finally, the sources pushed us to consider those significant ethical and environmental questions, concerns about trophy tourism,
Right.
the problem of severe littering and human waste on the mountain, and critically, the disproportionate risks and a relatively lower compensation faced by the absolutely essential Sherpa community.
This deep dive, really guided by the material you shared, it paints a truly complex and honestly often confronting picture of Everest,
Definitely.
highlighting its undeniable allure, that magnetic pull, but equally the heavy weight of its consequences.
Well put, and thank you for providing the sources that allowed us to, unpack all these facets in such detail. It's certainly a lot to think about.
It absolutely is. And maybe that leaves us with a final thought, pulling from all these complexities we've discussed, just for you to ponder.
Okay.
Given the immense financial costs, the human costs, both for climbers and especially for Sherpas, the extreme danger, the significant environmental damage, and all those ethical questions about why people are climbing today, does the personal achievement of summiting Everest still stand as something that can be truly justified? Or does the sheer weight of all its consequences make it an inherently irresponsible pursuit in today's world? Something to think about.